Hi friends, we are here to talk about the latest episode of The Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. This was a really good one. I don't even know what's making me say that because it's not like we've had any bad episodes. It's actually been a pretty good season for me, but I just like where we went in this episode, so yeah. We start off the episode with Heather and Angie going out to eat or drink or whatever the heck, and I'm wishing I had like a little bit of a filler of context here because obviously they had their issue, which I kind of forgot about, but it just kind of popped in my head because I'm thinking, I always think like, why are they meeting? What is their dynamic? So they had their issue of like, obviously they know each other from being younger, and then there was like a disconnect, and then Heather thought that Angie was all up under Lisa. Like, you guys remember that? So I'm just like, where did that end up going, I guess? Like, how do we get here? So I wish there was some continued conversation about that maybe, or just like an acknowledgement of it, but that just kind of popped into my head. They're linking and they're cackling, and they are, so obviously they're in a good place, I guess, and they're talking about the Pioneer thing that Heather had done, and they're like, how did that whole pop off? Like, what happened between the Monica and the Lisa? And they do acknowledge that obviously once Lisa played the game and said that she would take Monica off of her, what was it, wagon, then obviously they both kind of echoed each other and were like, Monica comes in hot. It's more so Angie that was kind of just like, Monica will come in hot, but then later on she'll like feel bad or like feel embarrassed, and then she'll apologize. And Heather's kind of in her confessional basically saying the same thing, but more so in a way of Monica's kind of all over the place. She doesn't really know what to expect from her, and unfortunately that reminds her of Jen. And I hadn't necessarily pulled together that comparison. I saw it on Twitter last week, I want to say. Somebody just randomly tweeted it, and I was like, okay. And then ironically this is one of the clips that we got for the preview, and Heather was saying it. So I was like, okay, like that makes a little bit of sense. I guess I can see that in their behavior, because you just don't really know what you're gonna get. But it's not like an eye for an eye type of thing. I don't think it's just so super similar, but I guess we'll see. I do think it's interesting, not to toot my own horn or pat myself on the back, but I always look at seasons. I think that's why I really like this episode. I always look at seasons and episodes, and obviously I'm, doing an overview of it and giving my analysis of it. And then to see, I've talked about this a little bit, to see the cast actually say those things in terms of the dynamic, because it's a reality TV show. These characters are polarizing. It's meant to make the public, the viewers, have opinions, polarizing opinions. So you're going to think this thing, you're going to think this thing, you're going to think this thing. So it can be all over the place. So it's always interesting to have a certain perspective and to see things and analyze things a certain type of way. And then after time plays a little bit, you see the cast members kind of say that same thing. So I thought that was interesting. And I say all that to say, we're seeing Heather, I kind of said this last episode, we're seeing Heather now say, Monica kind of engages in the act of the craziness and the chaos, but she's kind of like playing the victim role. And I said that like episodes ago. So thank you so much, Heather, for catching up. Like, I love it here. We get a nice scene of Whitney and what's her husband's name? I can't remember right now. Justin. They are talking about, what I really liked is that they kind of go back to the Meredith and Seth thing, and they're like, it was helpful to talk to another couple about a couple things, and then they segue into talking about Whitney's friend that was sick at the time and then ended up passing. And I did make a note before we even got to the final scene. It seems like in this season, all the big crazy scenes are at the end, like end group scenes. Again, another thing that just popped in my head. I did make a note to say that I liked that production was, at least we didn't get a lot of Whitney this episode before the end of the episode, but she was talking about her friend, and I'm like, oh, that's nice. Like, it seems like they're just kind of including it, and it just seems like it's a nice thing to add in because it is a part of her personal story, and it makes the show feel a little bit more humane, a little bit more real. But then now it's like, oh, but it did lend itself to part of the beef at the end of the episode. So, I wanted to give those points to production because I'm like, oh, that's really nice that they did that, but they were just doing their job. This scene with Meredith and Lisa was just so good because it doesn't feel contrived that like, oh, they had this big breakdown over 2 to 3 seasons, and now the character arc of it all, the dynamic arc of it all, they're kind of working their way back, and they have a relationship, but it's a very different relationship than they had before, but you can still tell that there's like love and support there, and that they're going to support each other at the end of the day. Like, that's how I feel. Like, I feel like it's an old friendship, but they're approaching it differently. It really feels that way. Like, it really feels like it comes that way authentically off camera. So I like they're able to have a real conversation, right? Like, Meredith opens it up, and we haven't seen this yet. Meredith opens it up and she asks about Monica, because obviously, Monica has come to her quite a bit about the Lisa thing, and she hasn't really had a place in it, but she's asking Lisa about it, and Lisa's just like, I don't really know where the issue with Monica came from, but I think that we're fine. But she does highlight again, and again, these weren't straightforward things. Like, I'm sorry that I'm so excited about this, but these were not straightforward things. If you were here with me following, like, I was really trying to piece together, like, what the hell is going on here with this Monica lady? And then I finally surmised what I surmised after a few episodes, and they're literally just saying it right here. Like, oh my God, I wish I could have gotten the Cliff's notes, but I like that this brain is still working. Thank God. But yeah, Lisa, to my point, Lisa says that basically conversation with Monica don't go anywhere. And, she starts spewing out insults and saying all of these, like, you're uglies and you're old and blah, 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 blah. So it's really hard to have a conversation with her. I said that, like, episode 2. And Lisa then says, like, I'm not going to go there with her and go with the insults. Like, I'm not trying to have that type of conversation because there's low-hanging fruit around Monica. And if I wanted to insult her, then I could. And that really did make me think, like, and I didn't think that was her being nasty by saying that. I think she was just literally saying, like, I'm not trying to insult her, and if I was trying to insult her, then I would. And that was a good point to me, because we are seeing, even though Monica is bringing that stuff to the show, right? Like her divorce and her cheating on her husband and her issues with her mom, like all that stuff that she has, her stuff with her dad, right? Yes, she's bringing it to the forefront, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't affect her, and that doesn't mean that it wouldn't bother her if somebody was talking about it and saying it at her on camera. So I thought that was a great point. Because it is true that not even just Lisa, a lot of these ladies could be throwing low blows at Monica about these different topics. Again, yes, she brought them to the show, but I'm sure they would still affect her if somebody was using it against her in an argument. And nobody has done that with Monica, whereas Monica is always like, you're old and you're ugly and you're materialistic. Like, it's always an insult. And so, I'm sorry. I thought that was a great point. She hit the nail right on the head with that one. I did like how Meredith did, like, swung this, and I always have to remind myself that Meredith is a lawyer, because we just don't really hear about it as much. But her brain, like, it's just like, I always think about the way that she analyzes stuff. Like, I'm like, damn, like, how did you come around to that? But it typically does make sense. Like, you can tell that Meredith sits back and thinks about things. So she starts off by saying, and I like that she approached it this way, because again, it shows me that they are working on their relationship. And she tells Lisa, like, I'm not upset, I'm not angry or anything, but I do want to discuss this so that we can clear the air. Love that. Excellent. Great. Good, because we don't even get to see that from Meredith a lot. So that's growth to me. And obviously, and it also shows some level of, I guess, accountability and self-reflection on Meredith's part, because she's asking about, obviously Angie has come to her 2 to 3 times now, not great conversations, but she has broached the conversation by saying, you made threats towards my family, and Meredith sees that differently. And so she's asking Lisa now, like, okay, so what did you tell her? Like, did you tell her that I made threats towards her family? And I like that. And, Lisa was very straightforward. She's like, I told her what, you said outside of the restaurant. And then, we get the flashback. And to me, I would take that as a threat. Again, I don't know. I think that Meredith means well in this moment, so I don't want to read her. But I don't know why Meredith feels deep down in her spirit that was not a threat. Maybe I thought that she was being petty beforehand, but maybe she just does lack that level of self-awareness. And it's not a hard level to attain. Like, this conversation that she's having here is a nice gap for me, right? Because she's trying to get the information and realize where it's coming from and what happened, but she's missing that half step to realize that is a threat at the end of the day. Lisa's very honest with her. Like I said, like, I don't know, maybe they did have this relationship, but we didn't really see it back in the day. But now we're seeing this relationship where they are friends, or they're working on a friendship, and they could still be brutally honest with each other, and it's not in a nasty way. It's just like, sis, this is how I feel. And Lisa's just telling her, like, I didn't like the husband thing. Like, I didn't like you saying, I could bring up rumors about her husband, and also that triggered me because of the stuff that happened with Lisa last season, right, between her and Meredith. And so I like that she was able to be brutally honest, and she's just like, that's disgusting. Like, I just don't want to be around that. Like, I think we should be moving past that. I don't want to do that anymore. And Meredith does make an excellent point, which I didn't think about, like when she and Lisa met up in that park, whatever episode that was, episode 2 or something like that. And they did agree that if something happened, they would communicate. So I guess that takes me back. I guess in their old relationship, they didn't have these honest conversations. So now they're supposed to be working on doing so. And so Meredith makes a really good point, and she's like, Lisa didn't hold up that bargain, right? Like she felt some type of way about this whole Angie thing, and she didn't come to Meredith or go to Meredith and talk about it. So I think that's a great point that Meredith makes. And I do think that Meredith then made not this one wasn't a great point, but I thought it was a decent point. I understood where she was coming from, because basically she says, you're calling what I said about Angie a threat, but to me it sounds like the same thing you just said about Monica, right? Like you said there's low-hanging fruit around Monica, and if you wanted to, insult her, then you would. However, the difference there is that Lisa was saying, I don't want to do that. Like she's saying, Monica insults me, and I'm not trying to insult her. If I wanted to insult her, I could, but I'm not trying to go there. Whereas Meredith is saying, should we talk about the husbands? Like you want to play with me, so let's talk about the husbands. It's more of a like, I'm going to do it, stop playing with me type of vibe. I get the gray area. That's what I'm saying. I think that it's less of Meredith being petty, and she's lacking some self-awareness. So I get where that clicks in her mind, because there is a fine line there. But context is everything, right? And I do like that Lisa was able to clock in and say, no, I'm not saying the same thing. Because when Meredith said it, and it's pretty quick, when Meredith said it, I was thinking like, good point. But Lisa's like, I'm not saying the same thing. And to her credit, she's not. So, but this is good dialogue. This is excellent. But Meredith still kind of gets her point across, because I think Meredith is just trying to explain to Lisa, like, hey, just see my side of things, right? Like, it may not be all the way right, but see my side of things. And she gives a pretty good analysis, and she says, you feel like Monica manipulates situations because she'll kind of put herself in that situation, attack, fight back, be involved in it. It's not all her fault, but she'll be involved in it, but then she'll play victim, right? So that's a level of manipulation. That's what you're clocking. And Lisa's like, yes, exactly. And Meredith's like, I feel the same way about Angie. So I think that she's trying to get Lisa to just kind of see her point of view. However, Lisa doesn't agree with it. I don't think it's that Lisa hasn't seen it and tried to consider it. She doesn't agree with it. And I can't be mad at her, because I don't see where, forget the comparison, just thinking of the word manipulation, I don't see where Angie has manipulated this situation with Meredith. Because to Meredith's standards, Meredith's math, what she's saying is she's alleging that Angie is weaponizing this husband thing to play victim, even though Angie was fully in the fight with Meredith. That's basically how she's trying to play it. And that's not true, because Angie, like Lisa said, really only said that she didn't want to be friends with Meredith, I guess, allegedly. Like, it really wasn't that deep. She never said anything terrible about Meredith. Whereas Meredith jumped in and was automatically talking about rumors about her husband. So it was definitely very different. But again, good attempt, Meredith. Like, you're really doing good. E for effort. I do like that Lisa's just like, girl, like, all, because it's all semantics at the end of the day. Like, obviously, I think Lisa noticed that they hit an impasse, and she's like, girl, that's honestly, truly how you see it, and I get it. That's not how I see it. So, fine, but I understand that it's not necessarily irrational. That's just kind of how you're working it in your brain. But consider this. She's just like, even dropping it out there, even if you don't think that it's a threat, and I said this again episodes ago, even if you don't think that it's a threat, just saying it already puts the bug in the ear, and it's an issue. And that's a great way to explain it, because she can't just say, like, girl, we're on camera and the whole world's going to see this, so it's going to be a big deal. Even if you don't spread the rumor, you just told America, like Bernie Mac. So, girl, like, it's the same thing, Meredith. Like, whether you want to categorize it as a threat or not, you definitely put a target on her family. But, fine. And they have that conversation. Meredith still doesn't agree that it's a threat. Fine, whatever. I think that we've exhausted that conversation. I'm sure we'll be back at it at the reunion, but I'm sure we'll exhaust it there as well. I like how Lisa then kind of pulls it back to them though, and they're just having a conversation about them. She's like, I don't even want to talk about other people. Let's just discuss us. And I like that she was honest and just explained to Meredith, like, the whole Angie thing kind of made me pump the brakes with you, and I just want to be able to tell you that. But obviously, and again, to Meredith, this is a good point. Meredith feels like, well, you pumped the brakes on me, but you didn't pump the brakes on Angie. And she's like, are you saying basically that you're supporting how Angie treats me, but you have a problem with how I treat Angie? And I think it's the same argument, like the through line of it all. I think that Meredith is just looking for a level of consideration from Lisa that she probably would have gotten in the past in their old relationship, right? Like a blind loyalty, which is fair, right? But they're in a new space. And I think that it's fair that Lisa tells her, like, I don't like this, I like this, I don't like that, I like that, but I still want to be your friend. I still love you and I support you, but I'm still going to hold you accountable. And it should go both ways as well. So I think that Meredith just has to graduate to that type of relationship that Lisa is trying to have. But, I do think, like I said, Meredith definitely has a through point. Like, she definitely knows what she's trying to say. And I think that her point is just that I'm saying these things, yes, but I'm not actually doing anything. Fine, Meredith. And she sums it up by saying, I'm not bringing the tornado because I believe in karma. So even in saying that, though, to me, that feels like a threat. But it's like, I understand, Meredith. Like, we're not going to get anywhere on this, so fine, let's move forward. We move on to Mary and Monica. Obviously, this is the season of the girls visiting Mary's house. I do like the explanation, though. Even though Mary's just a friend of the show, like, she does have this through line story of, like, I'm trying to get back acclimated with the group, and I'm not around as much because I don't want to have big blow ups. And she did just have a couple blow ups. So it's like, okay, fine, explain your absence. I don't mind that. Monica feels like she's doing the same thing. And that leads them into a conversation about Lisa. And, again, I'll give her the point, like, kind of like Meredith. I'm sure she has a certain viewpoint that's how she feels. Like, it's rationalized for her, and I think that that's fine. That's your experience. That's your truth. So she feels like Lisa has been very nasty to her and has attacked her and all those things. And Mary, who ironically hasn't even been around much and who I don't even know really likes Lisa, says, well, I think it's both of you. And I think that that's a great point. I love that Mary was able, because when we got the clip, it kind of felt like this was going to be a Lisa bashing session, but I like that Mary was just like, and again, I don't think that Mary even cares for Lisa, but they cackled about Lisa, and to dead ass, Monica got a really good impression of Lisa in. It was hilarious. It was, and I love Lisa. So it was a great impression, and they cackled and they keyed, but still Mary gave her some really good advice. And you can tell there's a disconnect because Monica does still feel like, well, I have this issue with Lisa because I called her materialistic, and I think she's held on to that. I do think that she believes that, but I think that it's a very surface level belief. I think that the issue at the end of the day, and we said this like early episodes, Monica came in very early with judgments of Lisa, whereas Lisa did not come in very early with judgments of Monica. And it goes hand in hand with insults, right? Like, Monica's always throwing insults at Lisa, but Lisa has never thrown insults at Monica. And it wouldn't be hard to judge Monica. Like, I'm sorry, it just wouldn't. And it wouldn't be hard to read Monica, and it wouldn't be hard to insult Monica with what she's provided to us on the show. And nobody has done that. So at the end of the day, like I said, Mary gave very good advice, and she's like, you have to accept Lisa for who she is, even if she is materialistic. Who cares? And, but don't hold on to a grudge, right? Don't hold on to a grudge. You need to move on and just kind of get over it. Not advice I was expecting to get from Mary, but I thought that it was fantastic. Like, I left the scene feeling like, that was great. And, Monica said that she was apologized, and, we move forward. We get the scene of Jack talking about, I like that we get the color because it felt like they were playing with Lisa all season, and the viewers that don't like Lisa were like, oh, Jack really doesn't like you, blah, blah, blah. So it was nice to hear him speak as an 18-year-old boy and just tell his mom, like, I'm ready to go off and be an adult and not be treated like a baby anymore. And he also gives personal context of, I'll go off and I'm in a different country and I'll get to appreciate things a little bit more. Great. Awesome. I thought that was great. We move on to Heather and Monica, and at the crux of it, I like that they were able to come back and have a conversation after the Pioneer thing. And I like that Heather was just able to be blatantly honest with Monica, because I can understand that it felt like it came out of nowhere last episode for Heather to have such an opinion about Monica, because we didn't really get that build up. But I like that she was able to have that opinion, which kind of caught everybody off guard, sent the girls in a tizzy. The girls are still in a tizzy, but she's telling Monica to her face, like, girl, like, she just straight up tells her, like, if you're gonna dish it, you have to be able to take it. Like, you can't just turn around and play victim when you get into these spats with people. Like, you've been fully enveloped in these issues and attacking and jumping and doing your big one all season. So you can't play victim and act like somebody did something to you. And I really thoroughly enjoyed Monica this episode, because you can tell that she's not on one. Like, she's just being Monica. She's having conversations, she's listening, and she's doing what, it just feels like she's doing authentic things, right? And so she apologizes to Heather, and she seemingly takes accountability, like, I believed it, but for whatever reason, Heather was still in her confessional, like, but I still don't really know about Monica. Like, it may be some weird stuff, and it very well may be, and I assume that it is, because obviously this lawsuit stuff that came out, and it doesn't seem like Monica's cool with anybody on the cast, so I'm assuming that something else occurred. But what I will say is Monica was doing well for me in this episode, and that's the most of a compliment that she's gotten from me in a long time. Finally, we get to the group event, we get to Meredith's event, and I like that she's showcasing her jewelry again, because I don't know if she's really talked about it much in the past seasons. No tea, no shade. So, we're back here. Great. Meredith's working. I appreciate that. And I like that. We'll get to the Whitney stuff last, but obviously Monica and Lisa have a very productive conversation. And again, it feels like, I like that Monica took the lead, and I like that she came into the conversation like, I'm not trying to be turned up or anything. I'm being genuine. And she's telling Lisa, like, we've obviously had issues, but I just want to be able to move forward. Lisa acknowledges her trauma, which I think is great, like, because obviously that's been her issue, right? So at least acknowledge it and know where the disconnect was. So I like that she did that again. And Monica's like, yeah, it is what it is. And she gives Lisa her flowers and tells Lisa she admires her and stuff like that. She also told her, like, when she first met her, she was excited to become friends with her. I don't know how much I believe that, because we saw the confessional when they first met, and she was kind of throwing shade, like, oh, I know so much about these ladies. So I don't know about that one, Monica. But this was a really good conversation. And I like Monica at the very least, and I think it is genuine, acknowledging, like, yeah, she has this trauma, and when she goes through things, it makes her act a certain type of way because that's how she was raised, but she needs to learn how to handle those things differently. That's all we've been saying, and I think that that's an excellent point. Speaking of handling things differently, and I want to handle this with care, the whole time that Whitney was kind of going through her thing with Lisa, I kept saying to myself, she's grieving. She's grieving. She's grieving. Like, when people are grieving, everybody grieves differently. And obviously there's hurt there. She lost her friend. So there's a lot going on for her. And we already know from past seasons that Whitney is emotional. And so when she acts, like, her emotions kind of lead. So this would make sense. However, I was waiting for there to be an issue, right? Because we got the clip last episode, in the preview, that she was going to tell Lisa that she was self-centered, and we have seen points in this season where Lisa was not being very self-aware. So I was thinking, like, oh, Whitney's going to have a point in this conversation. I wonder what happened. So I'm waiting for something to have happened, and nothing happened. Like, I honestly, I tweeted this. I said, Whitney is grieving, but she's tripping. Like, and it's so crazy to see Lisa hit the nail on the head. Like, I feel like it had everything to do with Heather. And then if you guys think back, and I brought it up in one of my older reviews, and I didn't know why it was important, but I peeped it and I brought it up, is when Lisa went to Whitney's house before Whitney kind of reprimanded her about her language. She was talking to her about the Monica and Lisa thing not too long ago. She was at, if it's the same time, I believe, but Lisa was at Whitney's house, and Heather called her to do the song at the event. And when she called her, the camera zoomed in on Whitney, and Whitney kind of made a face, like, and I had clocked that T. I'm like, is she clocking? Because I'm like, is it weird that Heather's calling Lisa of all people for this? I clocked that T because of the face that Whitney made. So now fast forward, I'm thinking, like, because Whitney is just steadily repeating herself. She just keeps saying, you thought it was so important to walk past me and give Heather a gift and not acknowledge that my friend passed. And she said it like 17 times as if she was thinking in her brain, calculated enough, like, oh, they're going to be editing this scene. I don't know how much is going to get cut out, so let me say it 17 times so it can be in the edit at least 3. And they added it in at least 17 and a half times. And Lisa could not have been more apologetic, right? And she could not have been more communicative and telling her, like, I'm sorry. Like, we're in public. I didn't really know how to approach it. She even said it before this conversation to Monica. Like, I don't really know how much I should talk to Whitney. Like, I don't know what I should say. She explains in her confessional, like, I talked to her last night. I sent her flowers. I told her I'm so sorry, but now we're in public. Also, we're filming, we're working. So I don't really know how much of that she's really trying to deal with. And even all of those things aside, Whitney's only focused on continuously saying, you walk right past me to give Heather a gift. She said Heather's name way more than she talked about anything that had to do with her and Lisa. So she's just like, you gave Heather a gift. You walk right past me. You walk right past me. You gave Heather a gift. When you walk past me, you gave Heather a gift. Like, just kept saying it. And Lisa's like, is this about Heather? Like, are you feeling some type of weird way? Are you triggered because I'm hanging with Heather? And she's like, no, absolutely not. Girl, you're lying. Like, that's honestly what it was. Because there's no way that Lisa says she was sorry at least 21 times in this conversation. And she's literally something that Lisa doesn't do very well. Lisa's going to get her point in. She's going to respond. She's going to give her perspective. But typically, Lisa goes in with that first, as we've seen with Angie. So it's just like, it gets bad. In this situation, you're seeing her take a step back, swallow her pride, and say, I'm sorry for your loss, Whitney. I'm sorry, you're right. However, and she's trying to get to her point, but Whitney just keeps repeating herself. She keeps repeating herself. And it's just like, how many times can you apologize? So I completely understand Lisa getting upset and getting emotional, wanting to get on mic. I don't understand Whitney. Like, I do still feel like this happened as a result of her grief, so it was kind of magnified. But then we also see in the preview that the conversation is going to go a little bit further when they get on their trip. So speaking of trip, Whitney's tripping. I mean, I just don't see anything Lisa did wrong or could have done better. Like, I don't. It just was not a huge deal, and I think that Whitney is feeling some type of way about the whole Heather thing. It's definitely a Heather thing. It is. Because that's the only reason, even in the tone of her voice and the way that she was saying it, it was coming off so nasty. It had such vitriol in it. It wasn't just like, you hurt my feelings or I'm upset with you. Like, you could still be upset, but it was just like, you gave a gift to Heather and you wanted to be up under Heather. Like, she just kept saying it like that. So it just made it very clear what the real issue there was. So, and I said this last episode, I was wondering, I'm like, where's the breakdown of Lisa and Whitney? Because they just don't seem as close as they used to be. Like, I was looking for it. And I think we found it. And it was weird because I was starting to think that it was going to be Lisa's fault. But I'm not buying that. So I really enjoyed this episode. I am excited to see what happens when they go on their trip. And I know that we're getting towards the end of the season, and thank God. But I think that not thank God in a bad way, but it's just like, I think we've gotten a lot of stories, a lot of through lines, a lot of resolutions, a lot of conversation, a lot of dynamic changes, shifts, arcs, all of that. And before it gets overwhelming, let's wrap it up and let's put it into next season. But I'm excited to see what happens in the next episode, and I'll see y'all there.